patriarch, you know, and play the role of the good niggas, they'll be okay. They'll be treated with respect by the police. In fact, they'll be held up as models of the ideas protested. Hippies that march in the amphitheater or go downtown or sit in restaurants or demand their rights, they'll be risking their lives. That's right. These cops here are tough. They kill you with a smile. Shoot to kill daily, you know.
Next time when a man calls you up, what he's going to do about 2 or 3 more times this year. And next summer it's even going to be worse because this is perpetuating itself. The people are taking back their country. You know, when we start taking back our country from the 3% that owns the country, you're going to have to decide, are you going to load this thing and use it? If you're not going to load this thing and use it, then you ought to put it down.
To do their thing. If some people storm the amphitheater, they storm the amphitheater. Some people want to swim naked in the lake, they swim naked in the lake. Other people want to smoke dope. Other people want to go and tell the cops what we're doing. That's good. The cops want to come down and beat our heads. That's it. I mean, it's all conceived as a total theater, with everyone becoming an actor.
Democrats, the Chicago Convention of 1968 was a nightmare. Meeting after the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, Democrats fell into chaos, fighting Chicago police and each other.
With George McGovern as President of the United States, we wouldn't have to have Gestapo tactics in the streets of Chicago.
Mr. Daley is not pleased with Senator Rivendell.
How hard it is to accept the truth.
And it's probably, I mean, you've got to put a lot of the blame on TV. At the same time you're blaming it, you've got to learn how to use it. See, TV, unlike the other media, movies, reality books, etc., TV gets into your fantasy world. That's why the images are shot, blurred, at the same time very specific, and they keep fading, and they're in short bits, and zoom in and out. That's what fantasy's about. They're not dreams, and they're not reality. So if you want to enter the fantasy world of America, which you have to, because people watch 7 hours of television a day, and that's how they get their information, you have to learn how to use it. It isn't enough just to whack it as a medium. You also have to learn how to use it. Talk about I'm on.
Not only activists, which is not true. The majority of us were not in the streets. They did not go to jail for what they believed in. They did not make the choice of coming to Canada. 20,000 came to Canada. 3.5 million went to Vietnam.
In 1968, in Chicago, the Democratic National Convention was taking place. Outside that convention were protests that Abbey was taking part in.
Now, Abbey and his friends were eventually arrested for trying to incite a riot and assaulting a police officer. They were later tried and known as the Chicago 7. Now skip ahead to 1970, the Kent State shootings, where the National Guard supposedly opened fire and killed 4 students that were protesting. That's not exactly how it happened. In fact, we are seeing today history repeat itself, and that's not by accident, it's not by chance, it's on purpose, because the individuals that caused the events back in these days are causing them today. And I'll prove my point. Now, before I continue, I want you to understand and realize the importance of ear biometrics.
The matching of the ear is very key. It's been used as a standard for identification in Europe for many decades. It has been studied thoroughly, and it is established that it is more thorough than a fingerprint. The only thing that is better than an ear biometric match is a DNA test or a retina scan. Now, both of those require the person's submitting or being part of the investigation. When an ear, you do not have to have their permission, since they are out in public and photographs of them are taken. Plus, if they are a public figure or they are involved in the media, it's very easy to get very good quality photographs or images of their ears. The only problem that you run into is when you're dealing with Hollywood and the effects that camera or lens distortion can have on the image, which can be drastic at sometimes on purpose due to artistic preference, or can be done to conceal exactly who the person is for malicious reasons. Now, when you take a look at these ears, you'll notice that one is done in the studio and one is outside, so the lighting is different. The one has an earring in it and the other one doesn't, so the lobe is going to be formed different. It's going to be pressed with the earring, so it'll be longer, more elongated. You can see that these ears, though, the inner working of the ear are exact. These ears match. I want you to remember this as we go into talk about this next person. This is Leslie Kagan. Leslie was born in 1947. She's an American activist, writer, and socialist organizer involved in the peace and social justice movement. She is a former national coordinator of the United for Peace and Justice and former co-chair of the Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism, and the former chair of Pacifica Radio. She was born to a Jewish couple in the Bronx in New York City. She's described as a red diaper family, which means that she's basically a communist. Her grandmother was a seamstress and founding member of the Amalgamated Clothing Workers Union. She graduated from New York University in 1968 with a degree in art history. In 1970, she began working with the Black Panther Party. She lives now, currently, in Brooklyn, New York, with her partner and author and organizer Melanie K. Kantrowitz, the founding director of the Jews for Radical and Economical Justice. I want you to remember that because that's key in this investigation. The ear that you saw is Kagan's ear. The other ear that is laid on top of it is somebody that she plays in our current government. It's Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano. Now this photograph is an older photograph when she was much heavier, but you can still see it's the same person. Is Homeland Security fake? Or is she just the fake one? I don't know. But when you look at all the evidence of all the rest of the fake individuals in government, which we'll get into in a moment, I'm leaning towards the fact that Homeland Security is a fraud.
Sheriff Joe for a long time, and my view was that 287G, the agreements that were in existence, were pretty standardless. I mean, they had
such a waste of resources, people, human resources and economic resources, and yet we have a range of people who have different ideas, different kind of theoretical constructs that they see the world through, but also differences about tactics and how you mobilize people and how you reach people. That I think that's one of our strengths. That gives us a lot more to work with. And we don't always agree on everything, but that's okay as long as we can find what we do agree on. What we do agree on is what we build from, and agree to disagree on some other things.
Now, how does Kagan tie into the events that happened in the 60s with the riots and the Kent State shooting? Well, as we mentioned, her partner, Melanie is not who she says she is.
About Chicago at all, of course not. Never worry, only mothers worry. Duty is
Chicago seems like we are hurting ourselves into a stockade, you know. I mean, we're getting ourselves all together where they can surround us.
See, what the Democratic Party, look at their theater, right? International Amphitheater. Have you ever been down there? Have you been to Chicago? Well, it's out of sight. It's right in the stockyard, see? Yeah. It smells like shit and death and piss. And it's boring. You know, they'll have, like, Kate Smith singing the national anthem, right? They'll have all these boring pigs, you know, fat businessmen, serious, very serious things, see? And they'll be showing this, see? And meanwhile, you know, like every 2 minutes out of every hour, there'll be us out in the streets or up in the park doing all this thing. Wow, 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 the new America, exciting. And it'll be like a football game, see? Football game's a good model.
Right.
Cops versus the Yippies or the National Guard or whoever, the paratroopers from Vietnam. I don't know who they're going to bring back to contain us. They're going to bring a lot of heavy equipment, see? And people will be watching that on TV and they'll say, we don't want to watch that boring speech stuff. We want to watch the Rose Bowl out there, you know? And they'll get mad. They'll say, why aren't they showing us that Rose Bowl? What are they showing us that boring stuff for? You know, a lot of people are going to kick in their television sets that week.
When you look at the images of that event back in those days, and you see the individual that we mentioned before, Abbie Hoffman. Abbie is actually actor Paul Michael Glacier. Paul Michael Glacier's wife is Elizabeth Glacier, who died of AIDS, but before she died, she started a foundation called the Elizabeth Glacier Pediatric Aid Foundation, which Paul is now honorary chairman of. This is a photograph of them at the 92 Democratic Conventional Party Conference, giving a speech about their organization and the importance of global health care. Now, if you notice who his wife is, she looks an awful lot like Henry Winkler. So I did a little bit of digging and found out Henry has, of course, 2 other sisters. One of them is Bee Winkler. Bee, as you see here, is now a doctor. She is the one that played Paul Michael Glacier's wife, Elizabeth. Apparently, the story is that she contracted AIDS from a blood transfusion she received when she was giving birth, and therefore passed it on to her child, and then through breast milk passed it on to her other child. So they both died, so they say, and that's why they started the foundation. If we notice who is running the foundation now, the head of the foundation on staff, which I assume is collecting a paycheck from the foundation, is this person. Also on their payroll is this person. Look alike? I'd say so. Now, how does this also tie in with some of the events today and some of the events that were back in those days? Well, we know now that Paul Michael Glacier was actually the actor that played the Starsky and Hutch character. Now, I'm more familiar with that than I am of Abbie Hoffman, since he was before my time. But we can clearly see that they're the same individual. Photographed with Abbie here is Lisa Fithian, or should we call her Medina Benjamin? Or should we call her other names like Cressida Dick? You get it? They love the wordplay. These images that you're seeing will be available for download in PDF format from WellAware1.com, so you'll be able to compare for yourself and see that they match, even down to the vein in the forehead is in the same spot and match. And remember, she also plays the fake lawyer, Judy Clark, who represented Susan Smith, which we know is fake, who also represents Jared Loughner, which is fictitious, and Bradley Manning, who is also fictitious. And funny, Bradley Manning would be brought up in this, but here's Bradley Manning at the Occupy Wall Street protest. Pay attention to the ear and you'll see that the overlay matches exactly. Bradley Manning at the Occupy Wall Street protest. Pay attention to the ear and you'll see that the overlay matches exactly. And if you've been to my website, you know who the actor is that plays Bradley Manning. It's Joshua Federici, as we see here. Also, we've exposed the fact that Adrian Lamo, the person that supposedly was the one who told on Bradley Manning to the FBI and then later was written up in Wired magazine by Jeff Paulson, it's all bunk. It's all a bunch of bull. As Christopher Fowler. Now let's not forget how Bradley Manning and the whole WikiLeaks thing all ties together, and this person, Julian Assange. Assange, the WikiLeaks founder, is also been identified, and we know is an actor. And he also plays the Norway bomber as well. So, again, we see the tie-in to WikiLeaks and Soros being the backer of this entire Occupied movement, along with all the other investors in Soros's orgs. And we'll get into those in another video, but let's find out who else was down there at Occupied. One of the other members of the Chicago 7 was Tom Reardon. Here we see Tom with his buddy Paul Michael Glaser, and of course this would be his brother-in-law, Henry Winkler, and it's Henry Winkler's sister, of course, Paul Michael Glaser's wife, who supposedly died, Elizabeth Glaser, but of course we know that that's Henry Winkler's sister, B.
Bob Jacobs, where were you? What were you filming, and where were you?
I was officer in charge of optical instrumentation at Vandenberg Air Force Base from 1963 to 66. And our job was to photograph with high-speed instrumentation every missile launch from Vandenberg going down the test range.
I'll save you. This is the Disclosure Project, and these guys are actors. All of them are talking about an alien spaceship coming in, shooting a warhead out of the sky, and talking about how they shut down the nuclear missile silos without them knowing that they were doing it, and the aliens did it. So it's a bunch of crap. But if you remember that this person here is also Richard Katzgar from Pima County Sheriff's Department. And don't forget he also plays the DA in the John Benet Ramsey case and a couple other characters as well. So just watch the other parts of this video and you'll see them in detail. I hope by now you're realizing that the world is a much better place than what they've tricked us into believing it was and is. And just to imagine what the world is actually like minus these individuals and their lies. Another lie at that time was the Weather Underground. This clip is from a portion of the real story of the Weatherman Underground, but it's nothing but a real lie. As we see the person that is in disguise is now exposed, and at Occupied Wall Street with the rest of the individuals that were involved in the fake events of that time and that fake political Weather Underground movement. And who, of course, could forget the Jessica Watts from APEC that plays the new and improved Gabby Giffords. And we all know that Gabby Giffords doesn't exist as a real person, since we proved that by the records in the National Archives and Thomas Registry. So let's move into the more political end of this lie and see some other individuals that I think you'll find most interesting. Remember the person that gave me the nasty look at the Dallas Occupied event that I was photographing down there, and I was exposing the week before all the players in this Occupied movement, and of course they're tied to Soros? This is his ear. I want you to pay close attention to it. I'm going to be laying another ear over top of it, and they match, and you'll see exactly who this person is.
Yeah, well, that was Gary Johnson, presidential candidate Gary Johnson. And then I found him, of course, at the Rockefeller's Beach House with his brothers Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Linton and Richard Sexton, who is married to Jennifer Greenberg Sexton. So when you see them all together, and of course, you know, Jeffrey Katzenberg is the CEO of DreamWorks and Michael is the CEO of Sony, and they're all at their relative's beach house, David Rockefeller Jr., you know there's a serious situation going on here. This is much larger than we've ever even imagined. And in fact, it goes even further back than we thought. Now, Gary Johnson was also down at Occupy Wall Street. He played a role of a police officer down there. Here he is.
With interest, I don't, it's kind of fun to see.
You know, if
but
you
I
think
don't
about
understand
it,
exactly what's going on, what they want. It's anarchy. So, I don't know. That's what we do. Wall Street is an interesting concept. Wall Street is Main Street in America. Wall Street is kind of the spear point for capitalism. We finance things. That's all we do. We take a guy who has a good idea in a garage and wants to turn it into something, turn it into a business. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And that's what we do. That's all we do on Wall Street. We finance companies, and companies are people.
Well, if you kill Wall Street, there'll be...
And I'm sure you remember this punk from 9/11, also from the G20, and of course Occupied.
Nobody helped create jobs. If you don't get jobs, then you're really unemployed. So.
Where's Wall Street been for the last 10 years?
Well, you can't look where Wall Street's been for the last 10 years. You've got to look where Wall Street's been for the last 200 years. And there's 300 million people in this country, and as of 4 years ago, the unemployment rate was 4.5%.
How can you it's always...
Hold on. It's not your show, monkey. I'm talking to these people. Hold on. I'm not talking to you. Monkey, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I did. Oh my God.
Hey, what's your badge number?
Yes.
What's your badge number?
You just grabbed my arm.
What's your badge number? Yeah, you shoved her into me
What's
too.
your name?
What's your badge number? Hey, sir, you're a public servant. Sir, you're a public servant.
Now I want you to pay close attention to this set of ears. It's very important. The one on the right-hand side is the opposite side of the head than the one on the left. So they're not going to be exact. This is just to show you that a comparison of both sides of the head, how they're different a little bit. You don't have the same ears on both sides of your head. Every ear is different. So when you look at the one on the left here, I'm going to change the opacity level, and you're going to see the ear, the layer on top of it, and you'll be able to see the only difference this is the same person. Is the perspective distortion due to the lens, but it's very slight. As these are almost taken at the same angle, the same point of view, and the subject is pretty much sitting in the same type of position in both. This photograph is older than the other photograph, so the graininess of the film is causing it to be a blurred edge. You don't have a nice sharp image as you do with this image. This is done 15 years more recent than the other one, so we had much better camera equipment, much better film, much better technology. So you can see that the edge of this is much sharper. Plus this is a studio shot of this person, and you have a controlled environment with lighting and whatnot. The other one is an outdoor shot. But as we go back and forth between the layers, we can clearly see that not only does the ear match, but of course the hair even matches, that this is the same individual. I want you to be very certain with this, because this is very important. This lays the foundation of a lot of things that we're talking about in all these videos. As you'll see, the reason
why they're doing this and how they were able to pull this off and continue to pull it off. Now here's another set of ears, just so you're sure of who these people are. The only change that you see in that ear is due to the camera distortion, the lens distortion. That is an identical ear. That is an identical ear. This is Walt Disney. Everyone knows who Walt Disney is. I don't have to go into any detail about that. Now, during World War II, Disney was the company that was producing the propaganda films for the United States. They produced several, and I spoke about those in the section 1 of this video series. The propaganda arm of our government, in order to spur the American population into fighting a war, showed videos that they produced about Nazi Germany and how evil Nazi Germany was. When you see Walt Disney, you usually don't think of that aspect of their business or their beginnings, but it was a very large part of what they are. Now, as a child, everyone grows up wanting to go to Disney World or Disneyland and see Mickey Mouse and ride the rides, whatnot. But for the rest of us, that's about as far as we think about Disney. Now, my grandfather fought in World War II. He stormed the beach of Normandy. He was 20 years in the Army and ended up a Chief Master Sergeant. He put his life on the line for the freedoms that we have today, and so did many other Americans and their family members. Many of them lost their lives. Many Germans lost their lives. Many people lost a lot, including their relatives, and their whole worlds were turned upside down, and still are to this day because of the events that happened from World War II. So when you see this person, Walt Disney, and you see the commercials for Disneyland and Disney World on TV, and you're thinking about going out and seeing the new Disney movie, keep this image in your mind. And remember what they are about. They are the ones that created the war in order for them to profit. Companies like IBM, Coca-Cola, all these companies profited immensely, including the Rockefellers. So think about that next time you're going to go spend your hard-earned dollar putting it into this Nazi propaganda machine that continues to this day to produce events that are fake, fictitious, and fill our minds with a bunch of nonsense. These people are still in control. These people are in our government, and these people are causing this world and this government to fall apart in order for them to get their one world government. Their new world order will not win as long as you don't let it win. Vote with your dollar. Do not put it in their pocket. Please remember that you can go to wellaware1.com and you can download the PDF versions of these images, and you can see the comparisons for yourself. Please also remember that we are fully funded by individuals like yourself that believe in what we're doing and want us to continue with what we're doing. So please feel free to donate to wellaware1.com. You'll see the link at the website at the top, and we will continue to bring you more presentations like this. Please remember that you can go to wellaware1.com and you can download the PDF versions of these images, and you can see the comparisons for yourself. Please also remember that we are fully funded by individuals like yourself that believe in what we're doing and want us to continue with what we're doing. So
Please feel free to donate to WellAware1.com. You'll see the link at the website at the top, and we will continue to bring you more presentations like this.